ايوه انت براكتيكال يعني. لو انت مشيت قلت يعني فمشيت شفت الجامعات التوب 20 MBA programs في العالم. طبعا اي جامعه عندها رانكينج كويس، فمشي والرانكينجز دي موجوده في الانترنت. يعني لو جيت قلت لهم داير احسن كليات بتدرس المقصى الشرقي يطلعوا عليك هذول احسن كليات، اي حاجه عندها رانكينج خلاص. فانت ظالم نفسك ليه؟ امشي بوس احسن ناس. فدي حاجه عملتها. فمشيت رسلت من 20 كليه الاوائل في العالم. فلا يعرف عنها كده في السودان ما عارف شنو، الناس قال لي ما في امتحان الجيمة. دحين حسب انكم ليه حاجه ولا ال 20 الاوائل ردوا علي قال لي على نفسك ما عندنا لك حاجه بس انك تمتحن الجيمة. اتلاقيت رسلت تاني لمجموعه تحتهم، المجموعه تحتهم قاموا ردوا علي زي 5 كليات قال لي يا اخي احنا ممكن نقبل بدون جيمات، لكن انت تعمل لنا شنو؟ تكتب لنا معاك اساي عن شنو، نعمل لك انترفيو زياده. المهم انهم ريكوايرمنتس يعني حتى كسرت الريكوايرمنت تقول لها شنو وكتبتها في كليات. من ال5 كليات قبلوني 4 وهم كلهم عندهم سكولرشيبس زي ما اخونا البيت شرح انه الجامعه ذاتها معظم الجامعات بيكون عندهم سكولرشيبس حقتها الجامعه، وثاني السكولرشيبس بس فانا قدمت السكولرشيبس حقت الجامعه ذاتها وقدمت بالابروتش اللي انا قلت لكم يعني ما بنسى الكلام ده، ما قاعد انسى الحاجه انا جربتها. قلت لهم يا اخي انا سوداني وافريقي وعربي وبرينجينج different experience like class. يعني شنو قلت لهم؟ مانجمنت conflict affected state كل يعني لا تبدو حكيت لهم قصص مؤثره. اهم شيء قصه تكون مؤثره. حكيت لهم القصص المؤثره. 2 منهم ادوني سكولرشيب. وانا كنت عارفاني جامعه الكاسر لكن هم قاموا ادوني سكولرشيب شويه كده مكسره ما رتب معي. فقمت رسلت لهم تاني قلت لهم والله يا اخوان كلامكم صريح الجامعه دي ممتازه كده انت ليه؟ ما عندكم اي حاجه تانيه؟ وهم قاموا قال لي يا اخي ما في مشكله لكن انت وقته خلص يو هاف تو اوفر. فقلت لهم يا اخي انا هقدم لكم خبره من الكونفليكت افكتد ستيت وكده وممكن اشارك في برامج ثانيه وزين الجامعه برضه يعني برامج بتاع تطوير حاجات مختلفه في الجامعه، منها تطوير المنهج نفسه، لانه زي ما عارفين في كميه من الحاجات النظريات اللي برا تطبيقها هنا شويه صعب محتاجه شويه تصليح كده صح؟ فيلا التصليح ده هم ما هيفهموا يصلحوا شنو؟ ما لم يجوا ناس من الحته التسريعيه ديل يقولوا لهم يا اخي والله دي ما بتنفع ودي بتنفع، لكن دي لو عملنا لها كده قربناها شويه ممكن تنفع. فقلت له انا اقدر اعمل لكم دي برضه. فمشوا يتشاوروا يا جماعه وقلنا نعمل ايه انترفيو تو ميك شور ان انا فعلا بقدر اديليفر الحاجه دي وقاموا تموها لي. فديس از هاو اي واز ايبل تو افورد ما امشي اقرا الام بي. فاحنا حكينا قصه انه اللياقه بتنفع. يعني انتم ما يعني الابروتش بتاع السكولرشيب من ناحيه بتاعت عليكم حاجاتنا صح وكده دي يعني عاده بيزهق الناس منها، لكن الابروتش المختلف بتاع انه والله الام بي اي ولا الماستر بروجرام عندكم ده كان انا ما فوقه يعني هم لازم يفهموا ان وجودك انت كفلان ده في البرنامج ده حاجه سمحه خالص، ودي الحاجه اللي انت بتبرهنها بالقصص الجبال والكلام المكتوبه وان انت تكون سبيشال. فالفرص راكده يا معلم all over the place، لكن بس انت تابروش الفرصه دي بالصورة الصح، وإنه أنت تابروش الفرصة دي بإنه you are adding value، يعني أنت وجودك في البرنامج ده مهم بالنسبة للناس البرنامج ده. فدي الثلاثة دروس اللي أنا كنت أنبهكم ليها، إنه you are already competitive you just don't know it yet. نمرة 2 you have to do your homework، ذكروا الماشين جن والسنايبر. نمرة 3 you have to start as early as possible. شكرا جزيلا. عشان تخش السلو سكول في MIT لازم تعمل لك بروبوزل بتاع شركه، وشركه ناجحه هتجيب قروش ملايين الدولارات. ده البروبوزل يعني البروبوزل بتاعك بتكتبه عشان يقبلوك في السلو في MIT. هو دراسه جدوى ممكن تمشي تفتح شركه طوالي. طيب انت داخل جوه تتعلم شنو؟ طبعا لما تخش جوه بتاع انت المفروض تكون مع الشيفوت الكبار والمعلمين الكبار. طارق يقول لي في الكلاس بتاعه اللي بيدرس فيه حاليا في الماستر بتاع بابليك ادمنستريشن، الكلاس ده فيه 8 رؤساء، 8 رؤساء اخذوا نفس الكلاس ده من نفس البروفيسور. لكن الاكسبيرينس دي ما هي خياليه ولا امباسبل، واسي فيها، في ناس قاعدين سودانيين فيها، ودايرين منهم من الناس اللي قاعدين دول ناس يمشوا، ولما يجوا يجوا، ولما يجي يساعدوا. الكلام ده مهم جدا يا اخوان. احنا سعيدين جدا انه معانا الاكاديميك ادفايزر بتاعت السفاره الامريكيه مس فلورين. هتدي برزنتيشن عن 5 خطوات للدراسه في امريكا. انجوي.
هل تفضلون أنني أتكلم باللغة العربية أو باللغة الإنجليزية؟ ارفع اليد باللغة العربية. ارفع اليد باللغة الإنجليزية. I'm going to speak English. أنا سأشرح كل شيء لأن هذا باللغة العربية. Okay, so I really liked the previous gentleman's presentation. I think it did a really good job sort of getting you all in the correct mindset for going through these 5 steps that you have to take to study in the U.S. He's so right. You absolutely have to do your homework. You have to have confidence in yourselves that you are worthy to study in the U.S., which you all are. And you need to start early. So all of those are really good lessons for moving into a discussion about how to actually get yourself into a U.S. university. So first, I'd just like to ask you all, who here is interested in studying in the United States? Okay, so why? Why do you guys want to study in the U.S.? Back there.
The quality of education.
What?
The quality of education.
The quality of the education, okay, that's a good reason. The United States attracts around, I don't know if this is on the next slide. Yeah, we attract around 800,000 international students to our country every single year to study in the U.S., which means that you guys are not just going to meet Americans and develop relationships with Americans, you're actually going to start developing an international professional network when you engage in higher education in the U.S. Just as we attract international students, we also attract the best professors from all around the world because we have some really good research facilities and because we have a lot of funding available to fund research. We attract really, really high quality disciplines that are at the forefront of their fields. So we really do have a high quality education to offer. Are there any other reasons why people out there want to study in the U.S.? Go ahead. Okay, yeah, you can major in more than one thing. Our education system is very flexible. So let's say you majored in engineering here at the University of Khartoum, and now you're interested in studying economics for your master's degree. That's something you can definitely do. And sometimes pairing those different disciplines really gives you a competitive advantage when you're applying to get jobs in the future. Any other reasons why you might want to study in the U.S.?
A big company in that sense. Definitely.
So you want to start a computer science company in the future? And somehow studying in the U.S. will help you with that? Perhaps maybe there's some really innovative inventors in the U.S. who might have access to, who maybe you could work with. Any other reasons? Back there?
Diversity of majors.
Sure, yeah. So one amazing thing that the U.S. education system has to offer is because there are so many universities in the U.S. and so many different graduate programs in the specialization all of you are probably interested in, there's a lot of competition. So every single department, like let's say there are a bunch of engineering master's degrees out there, they're competing against one another, and they're trying to differentiate themselves, which means they focus really, really closely in on certain specializations so that they can attract people and be different and compete against one another. And that competition makes the whole system very, very strong. Because they're all forcing one another to get better and better and better. Otherwise, they might lose out to a program that's stronger. So I think we covered all the reasons why you might want to study in the United States. And now I'd like to mention just a major difference between perhaps the Sudanese system that you are used to and the American education system. Here in Sudan, as I understand it, you all go through the national exams, and then depending upon your score, you're sort of given a selection of universities that perhaps you might be accepted into based on how well you did on those national exams. And the Ministry of Education is closely involved in that process of ranking the quality of students and then helping them determine where they're going. In the U.S., universities offer completely independently from the U.S. government. So the U.S. government has absolutely no influence on who a university accepts into their graduate programs or their undergraduate programs. And they also have no influence in who universities offer funding. So that means that all of you have to go directly to the U.S. universities and apply for admission and apply for funding, for financial aid. So that's a major difference that a lot of people are unaware of, and so it makes the whole process kind of confusing. Whereas in the UK and other international education systems or other countries' education systems, there generally is sort of a test you take, and that test determines who gets in and who doesn't. The US's system of choosing students for acceptance and for funding is a little bit more complex because they're not just going to look at your test scores. And this poses a great opportunity for you all because you're not going to be judged just on 3 hours of your life when you took an exam. The universities are going to want to consider everything that you have accomplished in your life. And they are going to want to get to know you personally before they decide whether to let you in or not. And that's why I really like the previous gentleman's presentation, because he was encouraging you all to tell stories. And you really, for the U.S. education system, need to be able to tell compelling stories about yourself, about your motivations for choosing the career path that you've chosen, and about maybe your future goals and how you feel like your graduate program is going to help you accomplish those goals. So let's move on to discuss the actual parts of the application process. And I hope it's clear, when you apply to a U.S. university, you apply directly, right? So every single university has their own application form, which is on the internet. On their website, you click apply now, and it'll take you to an online application form. And there are a number of requirements that you have to fulfill. So has anybody here heard of what's required, what you have to send to a U.S. university to apply? No? Well, let's think about the Sudanese system, because there are some similarities. So what do you have to do to apply to a Sudanese university? Go ahead. You need your certificate, right, from high school. Or if you're applying to a master's program, perhaps you need your bachelor's certificate, right? So the same story for the U.S. education system. You need to send your transcripts, which is the Tafasila Shahada, all of the grades listed out so that they can see, how well you did. So they don't just want your certificate that says you graduated from the University of Khartoum's Bachelor's of Architecture. They want to see your actual grades. Why do they care about the actual grades in your classes? Because they're going to be looking so closely at your performance and paying so much close attention to every part of who you are. They're going to look at the classes and say, oh, this person did really, really well in math, and we have a really math-heavy program, so we want this person to come to our program. Or perhaps there's a program that wants people that are really, really good in management, because their program is sort of geared towards architects who also can manage projects. So that's the kind of really close attention each university is paying to your application. So we've got the transcript, so what's the next thing? Go ahead. Statement of purpose. Have any of you heard of the statement of purpose before? It's like the Risala Shakhsiya or the Bayan Shakhsi. Have you heard of this before? It's very unique to the U.S. education system, and it's exactly the place where you tell your story. There's a specific place in every single application. Sometimes there are 2 or 3 places where you tell different stories about yourself. And it's very personal. And it's your opportunity to introduce yourself to the committee who's considering your admission to their university. And it's your opportunity to convince them that you are the student that they want at your university. You are a very unique Sudanese person who has a very unique perspective that you can add to their campus, to their department, that nobody else can offer. And I absolutely agree with the gentleman down here's point that Sudanese people are competitive, because there are only 187 Sudanese students, both undergraduate and graduate, studying in the U.S. right now. And that means that there are probably 3,600 universities that have never had a Sudanese student study at their university, or certainly don't have one studying there this year. And I'm not saying that just because you're Sudanese, you're going to get in because you're unique, but I am saying that you absolutely have a unique perspective to add to your department, because nobody else is from Sudan and nobody else has had the similar experiences that you have. So the personal statement really is where you tell those stories about your motivations, and you reveal that you are somebody unique with something sort of something new to add to the department. Okay, what else do you have to send? You need your TOEFL scores and your GRE scores, right? So for most graduate programs, they're going to ask for those 2 tests. The TOEFL or the IELTS are tests for English, and the GRE is a test of your math and reading comprehension and writing skills. Many business programs accept the GRE now. So the GRE and the TOEFL are both offered at the Khartoum American School here in Khartoum. And they're offered 3 times a year, and it's a paper-based test. And so if you're interested in business, you can find a program that takes the GRE, and then you don't have to necessarily deal with the GMAT issue. But the general license, there was an amendment to this general license that was released in April of 2013 that came out just this year. It is possible, if a U.S. company chooses to offer the GMAT now in Sudan, It's also possible for a U.S. company to offer the U.S. MLEs, the CPA, the accounting certification exam, and other sort of professional exams because we created this general license. Now, that sort of depends on the U.S. company finding a partner here in Sudan to implement that project, but those things are possible now, and it's just a matter of making it happen. So those are the exams. Anything else that you have to send? There's sort of one more major thing. Letters of recommendation, exactly. Have any of you had to have letters of recommendation sent to your, go ahead.
My job service and the student director of American Voices.
Okay, okay. Oh, so you applied for that, and were you involved in that program?
Yes, I was, last year I was a volunteer at the academy. I was not a member, so I did the invitation.
Okay, great, that's cool. The letter of recommendation is another sort of really strange and specific thing to the U.S. Admissions process. And I also manage some other programs where I have had the opportunity to read a lot of letters of recommendation. And the biggest piece of advice that I can give you is when you're asking your professors for letters of recommendation, make sure that you've developed a relationship with that professor. Make sure that professor understands why you've chosen the specific university that you've chosen and why you want to go to graduate school. And you can even help him by reminding him of some projects that you've done where you were really, really successful working with him. And in that way, he's going to be able to write you a better letter of recommendation. A lot of the recommendations I've read from Sudan have a lot of praise, which is nice. Sometimes they're just merely a confirmation that you studied or worked someplace. And if you want to have a really, really successful application to graduate school, you need your letters of recommendation to talk much more about your qualifications for graduate school. And I encourage you not to be afraid to ask your professors, especially if you try to develop relationships with them, to write letters of recommendation, because it's in their own personal interest and in the university's interest to write you a good letter of recommendation. If the University of Khartoum can say, we have 10 students studying at U.S. universities this year, or we have 20 students, that makes the University of Khartoum look much stronger. And if U.S. universities start to recognize University of Khartoum students as very high quality, then that helps the University of Khartoum start to develop its own international network of relationships with U.S. universities. And I know they already have other international relationships. So you shouldn't be afraid to ask for letters of recommendation. So those are the things you actually have to send to the U.S. universities. Your transcripts, your test scores, the GRE and the TOEFL, your letters of recommendation, and your personal statements. And on the personal statement, you should be writing a different personal statement for each university you apply to. Don't just write one personal statement and send that same personal statement to all the universities. Make sure you've tailored your personal statement to the university. It's like a man wearing a really, really baggy suit, and then he gets the baggy suit tailored, and he looks much sharper. You want each one of your personal statements to be a man wearing a nice, tailored suit. Okay, so now let's talk about financial aid. And I'll go back to my point about how you apply directly to U.S. universities for admission. You also apply directly to U.S. universities for scholarships. So the gentleman here had a lot of advice about sort of how to set yourself up to succeed in getting scholarships. And so now we'll talk to you about where those scholarships come from and in what form those scholarships take. In the U.S., the money comes directly from the U.S. university. So while you are applying to the university, sometimes you're also, that same application for admission is going to be considered for, is going to be used to consider whether or not you get financial aid. In other cases, you have to provide extra material, extra justifications, tell more stories in order to apply for certain fellowships that are offered by the university. But your main point of contact for application is the university. It's not the U.S. government, It's not outside organizations. There are some opportunities available from outside organizations in the U.S. government, but 95% of all of the money that you are going to apply for to study in the U.S. is going to come from the university. The university will decide. And if you forget everything that you learned today at this seminar, please just remember that one thing. So how do U.S. universities give out money? The money takes the form of assistantships, just like here at the University of Khartoum. There are teaching assistantships and research assistantships. So you work in the university for maybe 20 hours a week, and then the university says, okay, we're going to cancel either part or all of your tuition, or all of the rasumograsiya. And that tuition is the most expensive part of your study in the U.S. So U.S. study can cost anywhere between $20,000 and $40,000 a year. So if you have to work 20 hours a week to have a $40,000 year tuition payment canceled, I think it's definitely worth it. The other good thing about these assistantship positions is that they give you teaching experience, which is going to be useful in your professional development. So they're definitely worth trying to go after. Universities also give out money in the form of fellowships. And oftentimes those fellowships are a certain amount of money that maybe a former alum decided to donate to the university for a certain cause. And some universities like Purdue, I know Purdue's business school in Illinois, they have 9 scholarships or 9 fellowships set aside every year to attract students from Africa. Okay? So the challenge is doing all this research to find universities that are offering fellowships or that are trying to attract a more diverse student body, and that's where you all are going to be very competitive. So if you can find a fellowship that is for somebody from the African continent who wants to focus in math, oftentimes there are lots of fellowships available that are meant to attract more women to certain fields, and especially in the sciences, technology, engineering, and math. So there are all kinds of different fellowships, and so you just have to do your research to find the universities that are offering these different sorts of opportunities. So that's fellowships. And then the other way that universities offer financial aid is based on need. So many universities are going to ask you to send your family's financial information, and then they'll say, okay, you know, Aya has $10,000 to spend every year on her education. We cost $20,000 a year. Aya is a really exceptional student. We're going to try to give her $10,000 a year to fill that gap between what she can pay and what financial resources we have available, so that we can make this opportunity possible for her. So those are basically the 3 main ways you get financial aid: through assistantships, fellowships, and need-based financial aid. Sometimes the financial aid merit is also considered. So merit would be the successes that you've had, how good of a student that you've been, because universities use financial aid as a tool to attract the best students to their programs. And there are some fields that offer more aid, or that oftentimes attract more financial aid than others. Usually the sciences, technology, engineering, and math attracts more financial aid compared to the humanities or the social sciences. And then it becomes more difficult to find financial aid for public health,